A gallon of ice cream costs $3.99 in July and $5.29 in December, but the product hasn't changed. That price swing isn't a mistake or a markup. It's the result of an economic system so old and so deeply woven into how we move frozen food that most people never notice it's there. To understand why ice cream has one of the strangest pricing patterns in the grocery store, we need to step back and ask, what actually determines the cost of a scoop? Most people assume ice cream is cheaper in summer because demand is high and companies want to move volume. That's backwards. Summer is when ice cream is actually most expensive to make, store, and distribute. The real answer lies in the cold chain, the infrastructure that keeps ice cream frozen from factory to your freezer. Here's where it gets specific. Ice cream is one of the few consumer products that must remain frozen at every single step of its journey. It leaves the factory at -18 degrees Celsius. It stays that way in the warehouse. The truck that carries it is refrigerated. The store's freezer case runs 24 hours a day. That infrastructure costs money, a lot of it, and in summer that cost multiplies. Why? Because summer heat works against every system designed to keep ice cream solid. Refrigerated trucks need more power to fight outdoor temperatures of 30 degrees or higher. Warehouse freezers have to run harder. Store freezer cases lose cold air every time a customer opens the door on a hot day. That extra energy consumption is passed down through the supply chain, and it shows up in the price you pay. But there's a second layer to this puzzle. Ice cream isn't made year-round in equal amounts. Production follows demand, which means factories ramp up in spring and early summer. That ramping requires extra shifts, more workers, faster processing lines. Then there's the ingredient side. Cream, milk, and sugar prices fluctuate seasonally because they're tied to dairy and agricultural cycles. Dairy production peaks in spring and early summer when cows produce more milk. It's biological. That sounds like it should make milk cheaper in summer, right? It does for a moment. But here's the catch. Ice cream makers know summer is their window. They buy aggressively, competing with yogurt makers, cheese producers, and milk processors. Demand for dairy ingredients is highest precisely when ice cream production is highest. Then there's the storage problem that most people never think about. A manufacturer can't make all of next year's ice cream in July and store it. Freezer space is expensive and finite, so they produce in waves, heavy production in late spring, lighter production through summer, and minimal production in fall and winter. Yet demand doesn't stop in winter, it just shifts. Winter ice cream sales are lower by volume, but they're not zero. Holiday gatherings, ice cream cakes, comfort food in cold weather, people still buy it. But in winter, manufacturers have to produce in smaller batches with older equipment running part-time. Smaller batches mean higher per-unit production costs. There's no economy of scale to spread fixed costs across millions of units. So the supply chain creates a paradox. Ice cream is cheaper to make in summer when dairy is abundant and production is efficient, but it's more expensive to move, store, and keep frozen. In winter, it's cheaper to keep frozen, energy costs drop, cold chain efficiency rises, but more expensive to produce in small batches. Retailers and manufacturers absorb these costs differently across the year. But there's one more piece: how retailers actually price ice cream. Most stores don't set prices based purely on their own costs. They follow regional and national pricing patterns set by major brands. Those brands use what's called seasonality pricing, deliberately raising prices when demand is high, lowering them when demand is low, regardless of actual production costs. That might sound like price gouging, but it's actually more subtle than that. Brands are balancing two competing pressures. They want to maximize profit when demand is high, but they also know that extreme summer prices might push customers toward cheaper substitutes like popsicles or frozen yogurt. So they price strategically, high enough to capture profit, low enough to stay competitive. In winter, the calculation flips. Demand is lower, so brands could raise prices without losing volume. Fewer people are buying anyway. But they don't, not usually. Instead, they use premium positioning. Winter ice cream sales concentrate on higher-margin specialty flavors, smaller premium containers, and holiday products. That's where they make their money when volume drops. There's also the distribution network itself. In summer, ice cream moves through stores fast. Trucks deliver more frequently, which spreads delivery costs across more trips. In winter, the same truck might deliver fewer units on each route, making per-unit transportation costs higher. Retailers factor this into their shelf prices, even if it's not visible in the calculation. The science of scoop pricing also involves something called loss leader dynamics. Retailers know ice cream is a category where customers notice price changes. In summer, when ice cream is front of mind, they might discount it slightly to draw people into the store, knowing those customers will buy other items. In winter, ice cream doesn't have that psychological pull, so retailers don't discount it as aggressively. There's also the ingredient volatility layer. While milk production follows seasons, commodity markets for cocoa, vanilla, and nuts don't. A bad cocoa harvest in West Africa can spike chocolate ice cream costs regardless of the season. Vanilla prices have historically been volatile because vanilla production is concentrated in just a few countries and vulnerable to weather and political disruption. So when you see that price tag shift from $3.99 in July to $5.29 in December, you're not just seeing inflation or corporate greed. You're seeing the accumulated effect of seasonal energy costs, batch size production economics, dairy commodity cycles, distribution logistics, and strategic pricing decisions that span the entire cold chain. That's why ice cream has one of the most unusual pricing patterns of any frozen food. It's not about scarcity or availability. It's about the invisible infrastructure required to keep a frozen dessert frozen, and how that infrastructure costs dramatically different amounts depending on what month it is. Now you know what's actually happening every time you grab a carton. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research. Subscribe so you don't miss the next time we unpack the hidden economics hiding in your grocery cart. This video is for educational and informational purposes only and is not financial advice. Always do your own research.